And we are live. Welcome. There we go. And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. By the way, May the 4th be with you.
Dude, I used to be a practicing Star Wars fan, big time. I have been so out of the loop. Did you try to go see the Revenge of the Sith when it was in theaters? It was recently in theaters for a couple of weeks.
Joe?
So the answer is yes, you did.
The answer is hell no, I didn't.
Oh, what? Why not?
I just never got into Star Wars, man.
Oh, why did you? I was expecting you made the May the 4th be with you.
No, I just, I try to play the punt. I am not a big Star Wars guy. I was a very big into Harry Potter, though, as nerdy as that sounds.
I'm the opposite. I thought Harry Potter was stupid, and I never finished watching the series. Elk said he watched Thunderbolts. I tried watching it, and the fire alarm went off in the movie theater I was in yesterday.
Oh,
never got
no.
to finish
Did
it.
I get refunded?
I have like the stubs list thing, so like it didn't really mean anything to me, so I didn't bother to. My one buddy who works in sales is going to call them and complain to them and see if we can get like $100 out of it.
Well, do it.
Did you see Thunderbolts though?
No, but well, here's the thing. When Marvel is involved, I cannot take a 5-year-old because he's so wrapped up into Marvel. All the kids his age are so wrapped up into Marvel that, I can't justify myself going without bringing my 5-year-old. So that's the problem. See, when you get married and you have kids, you kind of got to wait for it to come out on Disney Plus because you can't, he would be pissed. He would be utterly pissed.
But why don't you take him, though? That's what I'm not understanding.
Because he's still 5 years old. It's still rated PG-13. There's still some stuff, that he's
Never
5.
mind.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not as if that he doesn't hear some really rambunctious shit from his father,
right?
Especially on this show. But I did hear that Thunderbolts had a massive weekend, though.
It did, and I admittedly I was so annoyed by having to leave the theater. I might never finish watching the movie, like ever. But a lot of people swear by it. Everybody in the chat saying it was so good. I was shocked. It looked stupid. Like legitimately was expecting it to be like a lot of the recent Marvel movies. I was just expecting it to be bad. Everybody was making it seem like it was unexpectedly very, very good. So maybe I'll try it another time.
Yeah, I listen. The last movie we went to go see on vacation a couple weeks ago, we did go to see Minecraft, the Minecraft movie.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I went in there judging the outright shit out of that movie, thinking it was going to be horrible. I got to admit, it was freaking funny.
Oh,
man.
You actually liked the Minecraft movie. I'm learning a lot about you right now. This is.
It was freaking funny, dude.
Oh my god.
And then Ben was sitting next to me. He was laughing. Dude, if you get past some of the political stuff in the movie, and it's not even really, I didn't even
in Minecraft.
Yeah, people were complaining that there was some political stuff in there from Jack Black or whatever, and he said some things, and I'm like, dude, I didn't even recognize it, to be honest with you. I love Jack Black. I just got to be real. I love Jack Black. Kung Fu Panda, baby. I just love me some Jack Black, but I freaking enjoyed the shit out of it. I thought it was really good. So yeah, but I do need to go. We do need to go see Thunderbolts. A lot of people in here saying the villain was the best villain we've seen in a long time.
See, that's what I heard. Everyone's saying that there were so many.
I accidentally saw a clip where Bucky Barnes got his arm ripped off and got laid out on Twitter. Listen, Thanos was a fan favorite too.
Well, that's what everyone keeps saying is that it's a Thanos. My stepbrother literally just said this to me. He says Thanos level villain impact storyline. So I don't know. Maybe I'll go try to see it again. It seems like getting an endorsement.
Last thing about movies before we get out of here, or before we get on to the point here, you saw Wall Street put a big ass Thunderbolts thing in the middle of Times Square, and you're right there.
Dude,
it's everywhere. I think that good on Marvel. Good on Marvel for landing on this one. Good on them. But we do need to go see it. Speaking of crazy characters, Donald Trump and Nick Saban did speak with one another. That's probably not a great way to segue. People are going to think I'm crazy. But Nick Saban and President Donald Trump met this week when he did a commencement speech at the University of Alabama. The conversation revolved around NIL, Joe. Can I be the guy that just calls it like it is and asks the questions?
Yeah.
Does it even matter? Like, there's not an executive order that Trump can sign to fix NIL. He can't get over Title IX. He can't get over the federal House case. What in the good wide world can Trump actually do here to fix capitalism?
Well, so this story, and I sent it to you on Friday, the On 3 article that was about this. And I think that there's like a little bit of speculation about what Nick Saban actually spoke to President Trump about. And to your point, like, what would this executive order that Trump claimed that he's actually going to place on NIL, what would it entail? It referenced back in December that Saban had brought up that he wants a more level playing field in the angle specifically of every single state, the laws are different. So after I read that, it made a lot more clear sense to me. I think that the disjointedness of how every single state has different NIL laws is one of the most underlying driving forces for this complete shit show and for the consistent messes that we have every single recruiting cycle. I don't know what the solution is.
Every state has different laws for DWI.
Okay, I understand that, but a DWI doesn't have, like, there's no competition for DWIs. Like, there's no, like, if I get a DWI in one state, it doesn't affect if somebody gets a DWI in another state. So that doesn't work. Like, nobody's competing to have the best DWI.
That there are some rednecks around the Deep South that are competing on how many DWIs they can get now.
The point is that
I get what you're saying.
He brought up, and Saban had kind of talked about the capabilities for there to be buyouts. The capability for a buyout not fixes, but mitigates the disaster that happened with the Iamaliava situation with both of the brothers. I think that there is something that could be done here. I just don't know to what degree. I think that the evenness is what Saban is seeking.
I'm not going to go into legality. I don't know if he has the legality.
You don't think that Trump wouldn't be able to
Joe,
something like that?
You have federal judges right now that are opposing Trump on deporting gang members. Now you're going to sit here and tell me that now that there's something that's in a federal court system that's going through it, that they're not going to have pushback on this. And if you're a player, sue. If I'm Nico Iamaliava, I already sued once and won. If I won out, I won out. What do you like? I thought Claudia Wilkin, who is the judge for the House case, in her opening statement made the right determination. The NCAA, along with all Power Four and somebody with the Group of Five, should have came there collectively, proposed a collective bargaining agreement to her where they could have agreed on terms. Right? Like that's what they should have done. But they didn't do it. I don't understand what a buyout for what?
If a player leaves in the transfer portal,
I understand
the opposite school has to pay.
How does an executive order do that when states have laws? So when states have specific laws, that's why when you have state-ran things, you would have to make a national mandate for all college athletics.
That's what it is.
You can't do that with Title IX. You're not going to be able to do buyouts. You're not going to be able to do all the things that Trump and Saban are opposing here with some of the federal regulations that you already have. There's no way. Claudia Wilkin literally brought up 2 weeks ago, if anybody is following this, literally brought up that about roster limitations. Joe, she's already bringing it up.
Well, okay. Well, here's my immediate and this is nothing politically driven by stating this. I mean, generally, wait.
If we're going to talk about this, and
I know, but like
politics.
Trump specifically often will say that he's going to just do things without understanding the ramifications of what it would take for it to actually get done. That is not a knock on anyone's political side or anything like that.
I agree.
I think that the way that I'm reacting to this, Blake, is just the premise. And the premise is finding a step to get to every single state having the same laws. That is step one. And I think that step doesn't solve all of our problems. I think that is a very easy thing to miss in the headline and an easy thing to miss in the story that some people might have clicked into and read this on Friday and thought Donald Trump's going to fix this whole thing. It is merely just a step, just like the House case is a step. But I think that's something that's not talked about enough, Blake, is that across the country, no state has the same laws. So some states have advantages over other states because they've had the laws for longer and they've had freer NIL laws than what others have.
I do think Trump has an advantage here. Let me throw it at you. He can put pressure on schools that don't abide by his executive order. Let me explain.
Yes. Yep.
Harvard, Columbia, Penn. What all happened to all three of them? They stopped receiving federal funding when the trans right issues started to take hold in college athletics. Harvard's getting federal funding again. Did you see it this week? It was reported. Look, I mean, I'm old enough that I kind of have to follow the news. I don't know if everybody does. Harvard's getting federal funding this week. What he can do is what he did with the trans right issues in reference to biological men. And I don't care if you think this is political or not. Trans men should not be in women's sports. Sorry. I mean, like, let's put a. I
agree with you on that.
Okay, let's put a line in the sand here. Okay, that might be the only thing that we get political here on.
Yep.
The problem with that is that Trump put on so much pressure that people started backing down, and they're not going to test him. Does he have the political capital? Can he do that for college football? We're not talking about other sports here. Let's just be real. We're not talking about college basketball. We're not talking about college lacrosse. We're not talking about tennis. We're not even talking about college baseball. We're talking about football. I mean, are we not? That's exactly
what it was Nick Saban. I don't think Nick Saban gives a shit about any of those other sports.
No, he doesn't. So as much as I said, what can he do? What I think he can do, if he really wants to take this on, he can hit schools with federal funding if they don't abide by his executive order. When you start tapping into people's money, they start getting right then, don't they? So, but hold on now.
Mm-hmm.
That's a temporary fix. The man, I mean, I don't know when he's out of office. Was it 2027, 2028, whatever it is? It would be a temporary fix. Now, it would, in my humble opinion, it could help teams and help situations resolve themselves in a 3-year window, right? He can do that. Let me make this very well clear. I am behind Saban and Trump figuring this out. The worry I have is, does Trump really care enough to get this done? I do think that he has a political win sitting in his face, that if he fixes this, people will love him for it, right? It's a political win for him. But I do think that there's a way to do it. He's got to hit teams with federal funding. But my question is if a kid, it's not the schools that aren't abiding, right? Like, in the sense of the situation I fear that would come from this would be, if a player wants to leave, then how can you tell a player not to leave? Now, the Nico case is something very rare, is it not?
It is.
Okay.
Very rare.
We're taking that specific case in reference to a buyout for some. Joe, you and I both know, we talk to people. Players are getting cut around college football every week, every year. Yes. So my question now becomes, okay, are we taking the Nico case and we're trying to expand it here? Like, why would a team buy somebody out who hit the portal and they never had conversations with him?
Well,
you see what I'm saying? Like, how do you justify that?
Well, but that's the whole point, is that if a player wants to leave and a school is losing that player. In professional sports, there's usually some sort of a return. If you trade a player, you get something in return. If a player leaves in free agency, you get a compensatory draft pick even. So I think that the whole
But not for everybody.
Not for everybody, but for top players on your team.
Well, how do you tag that?
What do you mean?
How would you tag what players are worthy and not worthy?
Based on if you sign a kid to a big, it's just like with a coach's contract. Like if a coach gets up, that's the whole better connection is that if a coach gets up and leaves, a school gets the money for the coach that's leaving in return for the coach.
Hey, I got an idea. You ready? Why don't you start putting buyouts in these contracts already for kids that are signing NIL deals? Why do you need Trump to do it?
Well, that's already something that's been starting to happen. But the problem, the whole problem is that there's not. This whole thing, as we all know, is a very complicated issue. Like it's very hard for us to really unpack because there's details that are not in front of our faces that are in these contracts that none of us get the chance to read. So that's the whole thing with the Madden, Maliava deal is that he tried to leave and the school wants his money back. It's basically the same concept. But
they're going to have to sue him.
Right. I have a thought with this though. Instead of trying to sit here and fix the issues and figure out what the issues are, what do you think of Saban being the mouthpiece for this?
Who else should be?
Well, that's why I'm asking. Like, do you feel comfortable that Saban's the one pushing for this?
I think that Saban's calculated in everything that he does. I think Saban does not want for anybody to ever touch his record when it comes to things, and that's why he keeps saying a more even playing field. But here's the thing that I have a problem with. Nick, it was never an even playing field for you. It was never an even playing field for Nick. So I think he's talking out of both sides of his mouth here. Here's the thing. Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, and so many others had the chance to take this by the balls and figure some shit out, and they didn't do it. I got to be real with you. I like Tony Petitti. I like Greg Sankey. I think they failed. I think they massively failed in this entire situation. So the question becomes, if it's not Saban, then who?
It should be Sankey and Petitti, I think. I just think that why are we allowing a former coach to be the one who's driving this conversation?
Because he's not hired by anybody that's affiliated with all these schools, and Sankey's got to play middleman to all these other schools that are sitting there complaining, and he's got to justify for everybody. That's exactly why, if we're just being honest, he never hit Nick on the tampering stuff. When the A&M thing went down, Sankey never came down on anybody. He didn't come down on Nick with Keyshawn Boutte. He didn't come down on Nick. Nick Saban went to the draft last year and said that they were actively tampering for a kid at Toledo.
He did it this year, too. He did it this year with Wyatt Milam, the West Virginia offensive lineman that he apparently tried to get him to leave and come to Alabama, too.
To that point.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I understand what you're saying here, that there's all these things that they have to focus and worry about. I just feel a little off that Saban almost feels a little sneakily the setting in which he is approaching Donald Trump to try and get this to happen.
What do you think he's trying to do?
I don't know why he has to be the one who's doing this. Why are the leaders of college football not the ones going and speaking? I bet Sankey's pissed off about this. I really bet that Sankey is pissed that he saw this headline.
Here's the thing with Sankey. You've been up to Capitol Hill at least 30 times. You haven't gotten shit done. Here's the truth. We talked about this on this show. Greg Sankey's happy ass went up to Capitol Hill less than a year ago. And when he was up on Capitol Hill, he was asked by John Kennedy, a senator, and Ted Cruz, does he have a proposal for college athletics? And he said no. He said no. He said that they needed federal mandates. They asked him, what federal mandates does he want to be set? He didn't have a response. And then therefore, John Kennedy went out there and said, well, then get all schools to sign a collective bargaining agreement. And he said, we can't do that. So we want to talk about Sankey. We want to talk about Petitti. They're failing. Now, I will give Saban one out here. You ready? Here it is. Mm-hmm. Saban didn't go to Trump. Trump came to him. Trump came to
he was
Alabama.
he was there for a commencement speech, you said?
He was there for a commencement speech. It's not as if that Saban flew up to D.C. They gave Saban the honors of introducing the president of the United States. He also gave a commencement speech, okay, for Alabama, which was awesome, by the way. If anybody wants to go listen to it, was a fantastic speech by Nick Saban. The problem is, I don't know who else that you could put a face on until everybody would agree to a commissioner, which nobody will do. Nobody's going to do, Joe. I mean, like, there's so many different ways to try to get through this. Why shouldn't Saban have the voice? If he's got the president's ear, why shouldn't he talk about it? And quite frankly, name somebody else other than Nick Saban that can openly get the ear and walk up to the president of the United States and say, can I have 10 minutes of your time? And the man say yes. Greg Sankey cannot walk up to the president of the United States and say, can I have 10 minutes of your time? No, they're not going to know who he is. No, they won't. But Nick Saban will. So to the point of, I think Saban's trying to backhand some things for his own legacy and his own self. Sure, I get it. And things weren't easy for him. At the same time, no one else has the balls to stand up and do anything about it.
I understand that, but like it feels odd to me because I don't know what Nick Saban's agenda is. I don't. I know what Greg Sankey's agenda is. I know what Tony Petitti's agenda is. I know what Brent Yormark's agenda is. I know what their all agendas are, which is their conference succeeding, their players being happy, and coaches not tearing their hair out because it is an unsettled situation in the transfer portal and NIL and in the world of college sports. I don't know why Nick Saban's doing this. I don't know what he gets out of it. Nobody does something like this if
because
they don't
it's a legacy
do it to
play
get something.
I'll answer that.
Is it that simple, though, to assume that he is just doing this so that he can be considered the savior of college football?
Yeah, it is, because that man ticks from a different type. He ticks from a different.
I don't know if that's a good reason, though. I don't know if that's like a good reason.
You mean to tell me that the man?
Well, that's selfish. That's really selfish. That's not in everybody's best interest. It's in his own best interest. Is it not? And no. I know he historically is selfish.
Hold on. You got to take this from multiple different layers. The end goal for him, for his legacy, is to get this done. You're asking why he is doing this. I told you because it would be great for his legacy. So do you mean to tell me that if he got something passed and Trump did it, that it wouldn't be better than what's already going on? So you can't live in the same prism that you're in right now and say that the man that fixes it doesn't get the reward based off of what he wants, right? Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying here. You don't trust the man. Like, you don't trust that he's not trying to.
I'm not saying that I don't.
Do you trust
him.
Nick Saban? Yes or no?
No. No. Wait. No, what I said to you is I don't know if I trust him. I don't know if I trust him because I don't know what he's trying to do. And then let's go back to the beginning of this segment that we said where I had to speculate based on a quote that was placed in the article by On3 referencing something that he said back in December during College Game Day, during the college football playoff. We don't know what he is telling Donald Trump. We don't know if Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti are aligned with what he told him. This is what I'm coming from, is that
Nick Saban does not tell Trump anything without Sankey being involved. I'm sorry, it doesn't happen.
I feel like Saban does whatever the hell he wants.
He does, but I think he does, but I think people are underestimating the fact of that Sankey, when he was commissioner and he came into the league, Bo Davis got popped with recruiting violations, and he did absolutely jack shit to Nick Saban. Not a damn thing. No. Look, name somebody else that can do it. Who do you want up there?
I don't. The thing is I don't truly know, but I believe that the people who should be, at the very least, should be the people who you were saying are not doing enough. Sankey and
why haven't they done anything? When are we gonna allow them to do anything?
This is to reiterate, this is my whole issue with everything that happens in college sports, is that there's too much at the current moment of just like sitting back and waiting, and then too many closed door meetings that happen between Petiti and between Sankey that we keep hearing about.
That's
the world that we live in.
I got a question for you. Do they want this to really end?
Yes.
I don't think that they do.
I think that they want the NCAA to look as stupid as possible, which is why they're not doing anything. I think that they want to be able to have as much.
But here's the problem. They're looking as dumb and as stupid as they are. I got to be real with you.
I don't know if everyone criticizes them as much as we do, though. I don't think that they do. I don't think that the media scrutinizes them, but I feel like fans don't even acknowledge them.
Fan that listens to this needs to do and get a deep dive in on what Greg Sankey and Tony Petiti have refused to do, and then that will change. But Joe, we're on year. By the way, buddy, we're a month away from year 5 of NIL. This will be year 5. No one has done anything. It got enacted in July, 2 months. It got enacted in July 1st of 2020, nationwide, and no one has done anything. Nobody. I'm glad somebody has the ear of the president that can potentially get something done. Because you guess what? Tommy Tuberville's a sitting U.S. senator. He couldn't get shit done.
Maybe that's all a reason why we shouldn't have optimism that anything.
Well, and I don't agree with Tuberville. Tuberville says that there should never be transfers ever. I think
dumb.
I think his policies are stupid. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
Cody McGee with a $10 super chat says, "Why don't we do like the NFL teams to do a salary cap? You got to have a collective bargaining agreement."
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, Major League Baseball does not have a salary cap. You can get away without doing a salary cap here. Let them dictate it.
We don't need the salary cap, nor do I want one. We don't need a draft, which has been like loosely thrown out there by people. All we need are standardized contracts in every single state that have requirements for how long you have to be there, that have buyouts if you choose to leave early and you decide to leave early, whatever it is. That way both sides are protected. So like, say you sign a 2-year contract, say that the kid really is not happy and he can't be forced to stay there. There's a lot of truth to that. That kid can leave as long as his next school pays the buyout. That's it.
Can I ask a question? What happens if a kid is paid a lot of money and the kid whiffs and they cut his ass and they tell him to go on?
But that's the protection of the contract is that, and this is why we need a collective bargaining agreement. We need somebody on the side of the players to say like, okay, well, if it's just like in the NFL, if you get cut, you had a certain amount of guaranteed money that still get like, was it Bobby Bellina, the Mets player?
Yeah, $1 million until like 2032.
Right. It's same, like you'll still get paid even if you're getting released. So this is why the first step is unified laws across the country and then a collective bargaining agreement. That's the way that I see it. I don't know anything about law. I'm not a law professional.
Me either.
I'm just reading these leagues and how things have worked. I have read plenty on the history of the NFL and how chaotic and stupid it was at the very beginning and the steps that it took to get to where it is now.
Well, follow those steps. Maybe you'll get somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, last thing before we get to the break. Elk says Michigan president getting out of town, the hammer incoming. Joe, we'll just thank you, Alex, for the super chat.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for us to talk about that until things really start coming down the pipe. I will say this, to Alex's point, it does seem a little bit fishy that the president is out and going to Florida. It does seem fishy. There are some highly respected people that we like and that we think they're very truthful, who have already started throwing up some flags here. I will just say this, Joe. I get what everybody has said in reference to other teams do it. I get it. You can't let somebody walk away freely. You can't. I'm sorry. You can't. You got to take some form of action. I don't care what the action is, but Joe, to this point, Michigan has not been popped. And John Harbaugh being suspended for those games is not enough. That cannot be the punishment. Now, I will throw this back your way. What was Tennessee's fine? Fine them for all I care. But at the same time, Joe, we're going on year 2 of college football, and we haven't had a judgment on this.
Well, when it's not,
we're going on year 2.
Okay, I guess we're approaching the second season since they won that national title.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to weigh in on the
August is almost here.
No, it's May right now. We don't need to jump that
May,
far
June,
ahead.
July, August.
All right. I'm not going to talk about an appropriate punishment because we will start screaming at each other for the next 30 minutes and we won't get to the rest of the show. But I do think that, as you're saying here, that this is with no punishment being delivered yet. It feels like this is some sort of an indicator. The president leaving for a good job opportunity. It was a great landing spot to take over a school that just won a basketball championship. We talked about on the last show the high hopes for the football program this upcoming year. It is a great spot to take with the situation that they're leaving, with the mess of not only the sign stealing scandal, but also a coach that hacked into female students' information. So like there is mess after mess after mess. I wouldn't want to sit there and sift through that shit. I wouldn't.
I don't know how they don't get hit with a lack of institutional control. I've seen schools get hit with a lack of institutional control for far less.
We'll see.
I mean, I'm serious. I'm being dead. I mean, I have. So grow some balls, somebody.
This is a mistake for saying this.
Here we go.
How is what the guy did where he hacked into the female students something that anyone could control? Like, how did it?
Because companies still get popped when someone underneath them breaks federal law. This isn't some state law. This isn't some like small
Nobody knew he was doing it, though.
It doesn't, Joe. In a criminal investigation, in a civil investigation, you could be sued if somebody at your business was doing something.
But they immediately, as soon as they found out that he was doing something nefarious as he was, they removed him immediately. What else are they supposed to do?
Companies get sued
They didn't hide it.
Okay, but companies get sued civilly every single day based off of things that their employees do. I'll give a brief, non-close argument to this. Think about Walmart truck drivers for just a second, okay? When they get in a fender bender or they get in an accident, Walmart gets sued for what the employee did. Nobody was asking the employee to drive recklessly. No one. No one at Walmart was doing that, but they get sued civilly. Do they not?
I guess that's true.
I mean, that's the argument that people are coming up with, is you've hit schools with lack of institutional control for far less. I mean, this happens around our country all the time. It happens every day. I mean, I know a buddy who used to make a joke that he's going to run out in front of a Walmart 18-wheeler because they had a minimum $1 million insurance policy on every 18-wheeler that's on the streets. How stupid?
I don't know. Yeah, that is.
How stupid is that? Like, I'm just going to run out in front of them and see what happens. Do you know how dumb you are?
Well, yeah, you're not surviving that.
No, you're not surviving that, you idiot. Anyway, all right. Joe, before we move on to Miami here, let's talk and get a deep dive into our
we gotta
over at Melin. Before we talk about our good friends over at Bet On, I said do a deep dive on our good friends over at Melin.
Sorry, I get so excited to talk about these hats, man. I get excited. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to talk about this hat. That's all it was. And if you want to get your own, and you've been seeing us wearing these, I started wearing mine the past couple of weeks when they sent me one. Blake's been wearing his for a while. Head on over to melon.com. It's not your typical hat. It is the perfect hat for if you're doing work in the yard, if you're out going for a run, if you are going to the beach, you need something that's durable, that isn't going to get torn apart by the sand, the water, all that stuff deteriorated by all of the salt water. It is perfect for any condition, and they've got a thermal collection as well for when it gets cold out. Melin.com, MELIN.com. Be sure to check it out.
Somebody said in the chat, think about doctors and malpractice. I didn't even think about that.
That's a fair point. That's
very true. All right. So about our good friends over at Bet On.
This.
It is on Virtual Zoo on Twitter. A baby rhino was born, and he was running as soon as he came out of the womb, and he ran into a log and did a front flip and hit his nose on the ground.
Oh, my God. I'm seeing it.
However, let me just ask you this. Did we talk about 100 men versus a gorilla?
We did. We dove too deep on that.
Can I throw something at you?
Yeah.
So in college baseball, pitchers have to make eye contact before they go into the windup or the stretch.
Okay.
Today, LSU got popped for 2 of those violations. And I said, if you want contact, just call Bonnie Blue. She took on 1,000 men and she won. Bonnie Blue.
Oh my God.
And she won.
I should have known that was coming. Every time I'm like, I'm so surprised.
Oh, Bonnie Blue should have known some things were coming too, but here we are.
God. Oh my God. Oh God.
Bonnie Blue versus 1,000 men, and we're worried about one gorilla.
See, that should have been the talking point. That should have been the talking point. You're out of your mind.
God bless it. All right. Joe, we continue on our deep dives here. We go to South Florida. We go to Miami, a team that, listen, I know Miami fans were mad at me a year ago. I get it. A team, though, that did turn some things around, getting to 10-2 in the regular season. You do have the number 1 pick in Cam Ward that is gone. You do bring in Carson Beck. But when you look at the 2025 Miami Hurricanes, how do you see this playing out?
One of the recurring themes, Blake, that when we do these previews, it's talking about teams that are returning offensive line contributions, key offensive line contributions, experience. Guys that are in the top 15 or higher at their positions because they've played a ton of football. And it's also us talking about teams that have elite defensive pieces, especially along the line of scrimmage. The hardest thing to build is a good offensive and defensive line, and to keep that group together for multiple seasons. I think that that's the big theme for me. I think that as we are going to unpack this preview, Blake, and we talk about some of the other key details for Miami, which we will get to. They are transfer portal heavy, and I want to spend time on that point specifically.
Heavy.
Yeah, I want to get to that point separately. But I feel pretty good about where this Miami team leads in 2025, Blake, because of how stout this offensive line is, how quality and talented this defensive line is. At the end of the day, Blake, when you have a top 5 offensive line in the country, it is very hard for your team to fall flat on its face. But the question is how high can they go? Can they actually reach past where they were last year, where they were right on the front door of going to the ACC championship in the college football playoff, but fell short because of Mario Cristobal's inability to finish in big games? That is a whole separate talking point. But Blake, again, I'm super focused on this offensive line. I think that they have a tremendous group, and that is going to be a big anchor for this discussion.
So to your point about the offensive line, last year Miami was 31st in the country in rush offense. The problem was they didn't run the ball enough to kind of control the games. You know, last year when we were talking about, listen, you know how you take a very bad secondary out? Well, you control the game and you run the football. Joe, they had far less attempts. If you go look at the top 30 teams, okay, that had the top 30 rushing offenses, I should say, and you have Miami at 31. Go look at all the attempts. Go look at all the yards per carry, and look at the difference between Miami and all the rest of them. The difference is they had far less carries for a much higher rushing yards per attempt. They need to run the football a lot more. They got a lot of offensive linemen coming back. Brockemeyer comes in. Can he deliver for something to them in the interior of that offensive line will be the question mark for me. They average 188.9. Let's just call it 189 rush yards per game. I do think a lot of things, though, were opened up in reference to how great Cam Ward was and how he delivered and how it opened things up for them offensively. I agree with you, though. You've built up this offensive line, and now you got to lean on them. Because, Joe, you said you wanted to talk about the portal additions a little bit later. I can't not get there yet. What are you going to be a receiver with Restrepo and those boys gone? I don't dislike the CJ Daniels pickup. I don't dislike the Keelan Marion pickup from the BYU receiver. I don't hate those. What I would say, though, is I don't know how efficient their passing attack is going to be to open it up. By the way, we're 5 minutes into this, and we haven't even talked about Carson Beck's elbow. Besides the elbow, which could be a concern, We haven't talked about the decision making. Now, I do think that Shannon Dawson, from a play calling aspect, is light years better than what Carson Beck had a year ago. The question for me would be, can you lean on that offensive line a lot early to run the football so that you can get some reps and you can get some continuity with that passing game to really get things rolling?
It reminds me a lot of what the Dallas Cowboys did this offseason, where they were trying, and to be perfectly clear when I lead this in, we don't know if this is a philosophy that works, but what the Dallas Cowboys did is they had a lot of issues with offensive consistency because outside of CeeDee Lamb, they didn't have a lot of good options to throw to. Their run game was poor. It was shit last year. So what they did, Zach Martin retires, they draft an offensive lineman, an interior offensive lineman, and Tyler Booker. They bring in 2 free agent running backs, draft 2 running backs. They're going to run the damn ball. I feel like a change in philosophy, not completely, but in a way that they realize, hey, Carson Beck is a great field general leader for this offense. There should be, and I hope that they have the foresight to realize we've got a little bit of a fear of what happens with his elbow. How ready to go is he going to be? How many weeks does it take for him to have zip on the ball the way that he needs to? Brock Purdy came back in a decent timeline from a similar injury, so he should be fine. But it feels like by going and getting Shamar Brown, as we talked about, and having Jordan Lyle and having Mark Fletcher, having all 3 of those big bodies, that they can just run the ball downhill. And that is what they're going to try and do. The other thing that really caught my attention, Blake, with this offseason is you spent a good part of last year doubting their secondary, which was justified. And it
was right.
Yes, it was justified. You were right. I didn't doubt them enough. They heard those criticisms. Corey Heatherman
got 4 new dudes in their secondary too.
Right. You bring in Heatherman, who is a great defensive coordinator, who got great secondary production out of a bunch of unheralded recruits and some of the biggest transfer portal. Yes. A bunch of transfer portal guys that they brought in that were some of the highest rated were the safeties and the corners that they brought in.
There's a dude.
Well, and who was the Tennessee kid that I'm blanking on that they just
Jacoby Thomas.
They went ham on making sure that they have the talent to not be a weakness this upcoming year.
Mm-hmm. And look, they still could add AJ Halsey. That's not over with yet. I kind of feel like it is, but until it's over, it's not over. All right. Let me ask you a question. Are you worried about their offensive line in pass pro at all?
No.
All right. Let me tell you why I might be a little bit worried. Do you know that they were 55th last year in the country at allowing sacks? Doesn't sound bad, right?
But
yeah, okay. If you dig a little bit deeper into the Miami thing of the sacks allowed, do you know how much Cam Ward got out of pressure and the outright wizardry that he had to pull off? I understand what you're saying of getting downhill. What I'm saying is that I don't know, right? Like I don't know if they're going to be good or bad there, but I do think they gave up a lot of sacks for a guy that had pulled off some massive wizardry in the pocket in Cam Ward. That's all. I'm not going to agree or disagree. I think it's a lot for a team to be 55th. I really do.
Carson Beck's not as mobile, obviously, as Cam Ward.
And he will sit there. That worries me. He will sit in that pocket a little too long.
Yeah.
So my point would be, just to add on quickly to what you're about to say here. You have a guy whose biggest problem is that he would sit in that pocket way too long at Georgia, for crying out loud, versus a guy who was so just amazing at making things happen in the pocket. My question would be, what does that look like? I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm not going to say it's going to be bad. I'm just saying that I wonder what it's going to look like.
This offensive line is better than the Georgia offensive line last year, so I feel a little bit better. I watched Francis Mauigoa this morning.
And it's not the SEC, respectfully.
Fair, yes. Apologies if I'm saying Mauigoa's name incorrectly. I would like anyone to chime in on the comments if I'm off on there. But I watched his tape this morning. He's considered to be a highly regarded kid for the upcoming 2026 draft. He has played a lot of football. He's played since he was a true freshman. I think he projects best as a guard in the NFL. But one of the things that stood out to me is that I thought the whole group worked really well cohesively together. And to your point, as much as Cam Ward was amazing at navigating the pocket, which he was, like that was his biggest boost on his scouting report. There's a lot of plays. It is the check and balance of his play style where he hangs around a little too long and he holds the ball a little too long because he's waiting for the home run to open up. So I think that number balances itself out, because there were times I was watching on film and I'm like, it's like been 4 seconds. Why is Cam Ward still holding onto the ball? And then I watch him get yanked down by somebody because they couldn't protect for that long.
Here's what I feel with Miami at the current moment. I feel that they are very elite at stopping the run and have the potential to be very elite at stopping the run. They were 19th last year in run defense. I also agree with you that they could really take hold here and run the football and really do some special things. Joe, when I look at them, though, last year they did not generate enough sacks. They did not get enough pressure on the quarterbacks that they faced. Now, with the new DC in, does that change? Do they rush more than 4? Tyler Bain kind of got after it. I know that you have Rueben Bain. I know that you have other guys that are returning. My question would be, can you get after the quarterback? Can you protect the quarterback? I think is a big question. You brought up, let me bring this up. You brought up the secondary. What did I say about the secondary all last year when Miami fans were in here killing me week upon week? They knew it was a massive problem. It got Lance Guidry fired. They went out and got 4 starters from the portal. I do think Zachariah Poyser is really good from Jack State. I think you got a really good DB and Xavier Lucas. It can be multiple in the things that he does. Jacoby Thomas is not necessarily the guy that you look at and say, look, man, he's a bona fide All-American, but he's a solid player, and you know that he's going to tackle. I don't want to say he's a good player, right? Like, you're getting an upgrade there. So, Joe, I do question Miami on a lot of different areas, basically because I just don't know. It's a lot of starters you're bringing in from the portal, but guys that can play a little bit now. So
go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead. I'm done. Go ahead.
I think that the issues with their sack production, you saw a bit of a drop off after the first couple of weeks, and a big reason why was because Rueben Bain got hurt and he was playing a little bit banged up, and then he didn't finish the year. I watched Rueben Bain's tape the other day, and I have very high optimism for that Heatherman, who had some very underrated defensive linemen at Minnesota as well, and was able to activate them and produce success with them. I think that Bain is the prototype for being a really dominant college rusher. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 pick, a top 15 pick in the upcoming draft. I think he's got the tape to be a potential first rounder. It was hard to really evaluate him with the injury because you could tell he was a little bit banged up, but I think that their sack production is going to be better. I think that him coming back, I think it's going to improve. I think that you had a lot of the one position group that we talk about a lot that's bad to try and go transfer portal heavy is the D line. And last year it felt like they had a lot of portal guys that they were bringing in for their defensive line.
Yeah, Simeon Barrow, Tyler Barron. Right.
Yes. Feels a little more settled this year. So that's why I feel like a little bit better about this. But the one thing I will say to you, every single position except for one of your outside corner spots with OJ Frederick, who I like as a player. He showed me some good things last year. 4 spots is a lot for a secondary. Like the antenna goes up a little bit, then I'm thinking, we criticized you. You saw the criticism. You wanted to improve it, but can we trust the good old transfer portal to solve your problems when it has burned some teams?
I mean, I don't think they got scrubs here.
No.
Now, I do think that Poyser will be an upgrade, and I do think Lucas will be an upgrade. We did see teams in the SEC last year attack Thomas, right? We saw a lot of teams attack him. I don't know about the other kid, and what was it, Brantley, I think that they brought in. Charles Brantley that they brought in. I don't know about him, but you're right. It's a lot of dudes. It's a lot of people to Joe, I'm just going to say it. They gave up a lot of this shit. All right, here's where I'm going to get roasted. You ready? The problem last year, if you go back and watch Miami, was not a lot of times play calling. Now, they're going to say it was Lance Guidry's fault. Joe, they were getting lost in man-to-man coverage. So how can you run zone if you're going to get lost in man? You can't. I'm sorry, you can't. They couldn't do the basic shit. With that being said, Joe, yes, it's an upgrade for me. Because I think Xavier Lucas has played a lot of football. By the way, he was with a defensive-minded head coach for a lot of it. Same, I think Poyser can play. So I think it's an upgrade even with, like, you just couldn't even get lined up right. It's why Cal. It's why Virginia Tech. It's why all of those Syracuse. You know why Syracuse threw it all over you? Let's call it what it is. Joe, they couldn't get lined up right. They had no idea where they needed to go. Yeah. It's what got you beat. So we'll see there. Last thing I'd say on Miami, I don't feel like we spent enough time on Carson Beck here. Joe, your thoughts on Carson Beck before we get to schedule?
I have a lot more faith that he's going to be more poised this upcoming year. I really think
he hasn't thrown a ball since he. Okay,
I know. Well, sorry, that wasn't me shushing you. That was just me. Like all I was going to say is, what were we going to say? Actually, what was your point?
I'm like, do I think that the Carson Beck of old can come back potentially? Joe, there are reports out there in the beginning of this from Kirby before he got in the portal that there might be nerve damage. If any of you follow baseball, any of you know that that's a horribly bad sign in reference to arm strength. Like the dude, like I saw a kid pitch today who was sitting mid-90s, would touch 97, 98. Joey's down in the low 90s now after having Tommy John and having nerve issues.
I agree with you on this part that there's not a lot of
that's going to happen, by the way. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that's going to happen, by the way.
Yeah. There's not a lot of clarity generally when we get information with injuries in the college game. There's just not. These schools keep it close to the vest. They want there to be misinformation for their opponents that they're going up against. Like they don't want it to be out there in the open. I understand what you're talking about. It's a concern if that there is some sort of nerve damage. It sounds like that he is on schedule and that he should be fine. But that doesn't mean when you have an elbow like that, that doesn't mean that you're still able to throw the ball with the same level of velocity when he was already kind of in that pocket of average arm strength. Him with that below average arm strength does present a concern for me.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying one of the things that we talked about when he transferred was that he's stepping into an offense, though, that is going to simplify his decision-making, I think, a little bit more than what Bobo was asking him to do. It felt like Bobo was asking him to do everything and more. And he's also throwing to guys that aren't going to drop every single pass that's thrown to him. I'm not saying that he wins a Heisman, but I think that he's going to play a lot more consistently than he did last year.
Let me ask you this. Do they have anybody consistently that can take the top off of a defense?
Well, that needs to be proven because
it's not C.J. Daniels. It is not C.J. Daniels. C.J. Daniels is a possession receiver.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of – Joe, outside of running the football, I think there's going to be situations where they got to throw the ball in critical situations. Let's see if they can do it, man. They got a lot of – dude, they brought in 17 transfers. It's a lot of dudes, man. It's a lot of dudes.
I do have a general fear that, like, we talked really highly of Florida State coming into last year, and then it all exploded. I don't think that Mario Cristobal has that on his hands because Carson Beck's not DJU. He's not that shit. But
no, like, Carson Beck's worst day is not worse than DJU.
Yeah. But, like, does this just result in them going 9-3 again? Because
no, I don't. Well, that may happen. The thing with Florida State and Miami that's different is that they've sustained themselves with really good recruiting classes from high school and developed from within. That defensive line you're talking about, that offensive line that you're talking about, where are they all coming from?
Right.
Other than Brockmeyer, they're from high school recruiting. So no, I don't think that they'll have that level of situation on their hands. All right, let's look at their schedule, Joe. Let's read off what they got here. Miami football schedule in 2025.
They start with Notre Dame, which regardless of what happens in the game.
Massive win for the Hurricanes.
Yeah. Well, no.
You said yeah.
Notre Dame. No. I was going to say massive win for college football. Massive win for college football that this is back, that this game, we get another iteration of this where both these teams have high expectations for the season. This is going to be exciting. They host, but they have a really weird schedule, by the way. Versus Bethune-Cookman versus USF. They host Florida, so they get the advantage there. They have a bye week. They go to Florida State. They have another bye week. Then they get back-to-back home games of Louisville and Stanford, go to SMU, back home for Syracuse, back home for NC State, and they go to Virginia Tech, and they go to Pitt. So they only have one, two. Wait, I might have written this down wrong.
No, you're right.
They have 4 away games?
Yes, because they got Notre Dame at home. They got Bethune-Cookman, USF, Florida. They have Louisville, Stanford, Syracuse, NC State at home. So they have 4 away games. But the argument you can have there is they went on the road to Florida last year, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, they only have 4.
Yeah, they only have 4.
What?
And think about this. Hold on, pause. Think about this. 2 of them come in the last 2 weeks.
And they're against weaker opponents.
Yes. It's a favorable schedule for them. Now,
wait. Favorable does not depict this. This is a damn favorable schedule.
Well, hold on now. You say that until they went on the road to those other teams literally a year ago. So now they're reaping the reward of having those home games now. Like week one, they went on the road. So here's what I'd say. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. On the same token, a year ago, they were on the road a lot. So, and by the way, they had to make 2 West Coast trips, if you remember. 2 Cal. People forget that.
Right.
I mean, like, so I get what you're saying, but I'm going to give Miami the benefit of the doubt here, mainly due to the fact of what they had to go through last year. Now they just get to reap the reward, and I'm not going to hit them on this one. I would if this was somebody else, if they didn't go through something like that a year ago. They get to reap the reward here. Now, it's not favorable in the sense of you got Notre Dame to start off the season. And listen, there's a team that we just got talking about in the Florida Gators that people are sleeping on now.
Right. And so I see 2 games that are likely losses. I think Carson Beck coming back into his first ever game, and you're facing Notre Dame with that defense that they're bringing back.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame just won on the road at the start of their season at Texas A&M, which is a much harder road environment. I don't want to hear anyone argue with me on that. I think that they lose to
that. I mean,
I'm sure someone would try. I got clipped last year for jokingly saying that Texas A&M Stadium is in a hard road environment, and the whole SEC was calling me a dumbass because they didn't understand I was joking.
You know I love you.
Yes.
You know I love you. I know you.
We also won, by the way. We also won that damn game.
First game of Mike Elko. You did.
What were you going to say, though?
It was kind of funny to know that you said that tongue in cheek, and that's what. Because remember last year,
I've done that 100 times on this show. I do it every once a month. It doesn't happen as often. I think people take me a little more seriously now and realize I'm not fucking. They
know when you're being tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But you're right.
I think Notre Dame and Florida are the 2 games to me that are like they're very purely like really difficult matchups.
That's a massive test for Florida to go into Miami because listen, I got to be honest with you. At some point, Billy's. I know that he beat LSU and he beat Ole Miss at the end of the year. That's a big game for him,
right? And I think that the other.
Go ahead.
The other 2 games that just catch my attention is SMU and Louisville and Syracuse.
Yeah, Louisville's always tough. You gotta give it to them, and look, we'll see. All right, wrap it up here, Joe. Let's talk about our good friends over at Cheribundi before we talk about the slow brief scandal with Iowa State.
Yes.
By the way, got the gummies here. Yes, got the gummies here. Cheribundi, got the pure gummies, the tart cherry gummies. Take one, get the antioxidants.
I've had a bit of a long weekend. I've had a bit of a long couple of weeks. I know I'm going to need some tonight to get a good night's sleep. And they've got lots of different supplements for so many different needs. Improve your sleep, reduce soreness, increase recovery, help support immunity, you name it. So many different ways to help yourself with Cheribundi. And it is reliable. It is heavily tested. And it is used by so many NFL, professional sports teams, college sports teams, nearly 500 college and pro teams. Be sure to check out Cheribundi at cheribundi.com, cheribundi.com, to see all of the amazing supplements they have. Again, that is cheribundi.com.
Joe, before we get out of here, some Iowa State players got popped a while back for gambling on games. They're back in the news now. I will let people read the article as we're getting out of here about what happened. But your thoughts on the scandal that's going on around Iowa State with the betting, and they're not the only one. Kansas State had a couple, and Missouri, I think, had one. Your thoughts on this situation with Iowa State?
Well, so the latest news that came out with the Iowa State stuff is that there were 5 members of the coaching staff that were also held accountable for what they did. Yes. Jace Heacock, Chase Clark, Michael Dreyer, Kyle Highland, Mason Williams. There seems to be a rampant issue with sports gambling at these schools. And some of the things that was identified is that they were not betting on the football games, but they were betting on, while being in the facilities, having access to information that outsiders would not have access to, the Iowa State men's and women's basketball games is what they were betting on. And also plenty of other sports. These guys, some of them bet over 2,000 times in this short period of time, tens of thousands of dollars. I know it sounds like a lot. I probably place the same amount of bets in a year. I think that this issue with sports gambling, Blake, is something that needs to be better handled.
The problem I have with that, were they betting on their games?
No, but to be betting on games in the same athletic department when they rub shoulders with the coaches.
Joe, let me ask you a question. Do you know
they can show up to a practice and watch a practice if they wanted to?
Okay. Do you know if? Let me ask you this: should we be held to a higher standard of those in the media that cover the team and talk to coaches when players are going to be out, that we should and shouldn't bet on games?
That's a fair point.
When a coach calls me and says, "Hey, listen now, so and so is going to be out this week. We ain't rolling with them." Let me throw this out your way. In conference games, the SEC did a injury report, like the NFL. I mean, they've done it in all sports. I mean, like, the injuries are out there before the games even start. So, like, what are you tagging on them for? You understand what I'm saying? So, I have injury reports that are out. I understand what you're saying in reference to, like, if there weren't injury reports out and they could have known some things, then yes. But my question is, how does this affect what Iowa State football is doing?
It doesn't. The whole point is that there is a very clear, no nonsense policy with sports gambling, and all this many coaches on your staff violated it.
Yeah, I got to be real with you. This is the one that, okay, do something about it, whatever. I'm just like, there's nothing that I think that in talking with coaches and stuff that we know as in covering college football, I mean, then holding me to the same standard. I will tell you this. I made a bet against LSU last year because I knew a critical player was out.
I wouldn't say that they have some sort of advantage. That's not what I'm getting at here. I'm more so implying that they're understanding that they're not supposed to be doing it and them still placing bets and doing it. I think that I know that there's a million issues that the NCAA needs to address. One of the biggest ones that should have been so simply addressed is having some sort of, I know this is going to sound crazy, but direct partnership with a sports book. They need to have an official sports book or something of these conferences, of the NCAA, whatever it is, because it is going to make monitoring these things a lot easier. The problem is that what they did didn't affect the sports. It didn't. It doesn't affect any of those things. But the ease of access and the willingness for these people to place these bets, at what point do they cross the line? At what point do they cross the line?
They didn't cross the line. That's like arresting somebody because you think they're going to drink and drive. That's like arresting a dude inside a bar because he's got keys in his hand.
But they're not legally allowed to do it regardless. Like, they're not allowed to be placing these bets anyways.
I get it. I don't think it's immoral, if I'm being honest. It might be against rules, but I mean, I just don't think it's immoral because I like there's so many other people you could hold to those standards.
I don't know. I guess that's
Let me ask you a question. Should boosters not be able to place bets? Because
frankly, no. I mean, no.
They got more inside info than anybody.
I would say no. I mean, but there's no way of.
No, you can't take that. You can't take that away from them. How can you take that away from them? I don't know. What is the chat saying? Do y'all agree? Yes or no? You can always use Hard Rock in the state of Florida. Did you know that?
You can only use Hard Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, you can only use Hard Rock. That's kind of crazy.
Well, he's just pointing out that to having a uniform. I don't know. Maybe I missed right into this.
I mean, I don't know if you did. I get what you're saying. So, yeah, we got a super chat here. Cheribundi, $2 from Cody says, is at your local Rouse's in Hammond. How about that?
That's good to know. It's in more places than you guys realize.
Yeah, I mean, you need to take them. They're really good. All right.
Try it out.
We'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good night. No T-ball tomorrow, man. I'm kind of devastated.
Are you? Are you actually?
T-ball update. Here we go. I might be the best third base T-ball coach in the country.
Oh, I'm sure that
I've been sending kids left and right because I know, like, there's this little girl on our team. Her name's Autumn. You ain't catching her. There's no little boy on that team on that field that can catch her. I be sending her. I'm like, they can't catch you. They can't throw, by the way.
I was gonna say, how hard is it to really stop a 5-year-old from taking home plate? Are you coaching them up to charge? Are you coaching them up to
1,000%. Listen, there's a kid stopping our base runners in the baseline. And I told every single kid on that team, I came to the dugout, I said, run them over. Shouldn't have done that because it 1,000% happened. But here's the thing. We got awarded the base and we got awarded a run because,
funny.
Hey, man, we're competitive. I will say this. Okay. Runners were on second and third last week. 2 outs. Ben Ruffino comes up to the plate and hits a line drive right back up the middle. Daddy was sending everybody. The big wheel came out, let's go, let's go, let's go.
I need to be there to see this.
Oh.
I might need to come out for a game.
Entertainment that you will get in a week. I promise you that. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a good night. Peace.